darker, we call it medulla inside. One little bit lighter, we call it cortex. Of course, if you can see that, the medulla made of the lobes is lobulated. Each of them known as a pyramid because of the shape, okay? And if you look at the cortex extended between the lobe right here, we call it columns. This is the renal column. So we have renal capsule outside, dense connective tissue. We have the cortex, renal column, and medulla made of the about 5 to 11 plus minus these pyramids. Okay? Now, inside of the pyramid, and of course in the cortex, we have the functional unit of the kidney, we call the nephron. And these are represented nephrons. So I'm going to enlarge one of the pyramid. And here is the medulla. This is the cortex. In a cortex and medulla, we're going to see the component of the nephron. We have millions of nephrons. That is a functional unit of kidney. Each nephron has two distinct parts. One is called renal corpuscle. Corpuscle means body. That's another one, then another one, this another one. And then renal tubule. These are the tubule. Between the tubule and the corpuscle, we have our nephron. Each renal corpuscle looks like this. Has two parts. A capsule around it, we call it glomerulus capsule or capsule of Bowman. And inside is a network of the capillary, we call it glomerulus. So corpuscle made of the glomerulus and capsule. Of course, the blood comes from one and leaves through to the other one. The one that comes in, we call it afferent tubule. The one leaves, we call it efferent. How do you know which one it is? The afferent is wide in diameter. Efferent. And this is one of the rare areas the artery brings the blood and artery takes it out. Usually vein does it. So what is this? Renal corpuscle. The part, capsule, and capillary, glomerulus we call it. The tubule start right over here. So there are different tubes. One attached to the renal corpuscle, we call it proximal convoluted tubule. Watch this right here. Proximal convoluted. The one that closes to the proximal. This is proximal also. Okay? The proximal convoluted tubule is in the cortex along the renal corpuscle. And then extended into the medulla as a loop. We call it loop of Henle. There's a descending, which become thinner, simple squamous, and become ascending, become thicker, simple cuboidal. Goes back to the cortex, it gives rise to distal convoluted. And distal convoluted drains the filtrate, which become urine, into the collecting duct. As you can see, that collecting duct receive many nephrons. Okay? Now, collecting duct opens up at the apex of this pyramid. We call it papilla. These are the papilla. Into the bigger area. Of course, this one shows only one collecting duct. There are many of them. When it opens up in a saucer-shaped area, we call it minor calyx. This is the minor calyx right here, which this one doesn't show that. And a few minor calyxes right here, minor calyx, come together to give rise to the bigger area. We call it major calyx. Right here, minor, opens up into the major calyx. Major calyxes drains into the proximal part of the ureter, like a funnel shape. We call it renal pelvis. So here's a renal pelvis. They receive urine from the major calyxes and into the ureter, into the bladder. Okay? So nephron made of two parts. Corpuscle, which is right here, and tubule. The corpuscle made of two structures, glomerulus, capillary, and capsule. The capsule itself has two layers. The outer layer, which is a flat cell, a squamous, which play no role in filtration, and the viscera. The viscera are right here, wraps around the capillary. We call it podocyte, like a foot wraps around it. So this is the parietal, that's a viscera. So the blood comes in, leaves this podocyte, and it's in this cavity, goes into the proximal, goes into the loop, descending, ascending, into the distal, into the collecting. Within this loop, the exchange occurs. Because what is not showing here, what wraps around this tubule are capillary, we call it pre-tubular capillary, that allows the exchange of the nutrient and waste product constantly. Okay, so it's elongated, more secretion happen here. As the filter goes here, some of the good nutrient is still in there. It can be reabsorbed back into the vessel. Whatever doesn't go into the tubule, the capillary around it, secreted back into the tubule. So constantly there's a secretion and resorption here. Okay. So now just turn your cell phone off, and I'm going to ask you a question. What is this part of the kidney called? What about here? The brown capsule. Capsule. Dense connective tissue. What about this in between? Colon. Medulla. Each mass called pyramids. Okay. And if you look at it, these are corpuscles. Same thing. You only find a corpuscle in the cortex. So when you look at the slide, I ask you to identify medulla or cortex. If you see this right here, very easily can identify. You know that's the cortex. Loop family and part of the collective is in the medulla. The renal corpuscle consists of two layers. Capsule and glomerulus, right? Afferent. Guess what it is? Distal convoluted tubule. That's proximal convoluted tubule. This one is this guy right here. This one is right over here. All bent. This been simplified right here. They all go together, right? But the descending, which? This is the descending. Descending is a continuation of the proximal convoluted. Okay. Ascending, yes.
The green one is proximal or distal?
No, that's distal.
Distal.
Yeah. It's not attaches to it. Proximal attaches to that. It just goes within the vicinity.